Okay, so we are in week 7, which means we've only got 2 weeks left. So if you have any work that is missing or anything you want to resubmit, we are down to the last 2 weeks. Now is the time to make sure you get all those in. So this week we are talking about graphing and the rectangular coordinate system. So we're going through chapter 3. There are more than 4 sections in chapter 3. We're only going through the first 4. So we have 3.1, which is rectangular coordinate system, 3.2, linear equations in 2 variables, 3.3 is slope of a line and rate of change, and 3.4 is slope-intercept form of a linear equation. 3.5 covers point-slope form, and while we're not reading that section, we are going to cover a little bit of that in our discussion. And I have a video where I kind of go over that. It's actually pretty simple, and so the discussion will introduce you to that topic. So we're basically looking at what the rectangular coordinate system is. We're going to spend a lot of time on graphing linear equations, slope, and slope-intercept form. So a lot of it is about lines and their equations and what they look like. So this week you have your discussion, the ungraded practice assignment, the assignment, and then the quiz. So as I mentioned in your discussion, you will have to use slope or point slope form. So this discussion is a math-based discussion. So far we haven't really done any discussions where you have to work out math. Last week there was one where you could show some math and then ask for help. This discussion, there's an actual set steps that you're going to do in order to do the math. When you go on to college algebra, this is going to be more common. You're going to have a lot more math-based discussions where you're going to be applying math to the real world. And that's something you see when you get to pre-calc and then again when you go in calculus. So this is like your first introduction to it. So for our discussion, we're going to be looking at the relationship between our forearm, and the forearm is this distance from your wrist to basically the inside of your elbow. So what I have, this is your forearm. So we're going to be looking at the relationship between your forearm and how long that is and how high you are. There is a relationship between your wingspan, as they call it basically. If you have your arms out to your sides and you kind of make a T with your body, the distance from your fingertips from both sides, your left and right fingertips, is supposed to be the same as your height. And so we're going to look at a relationship to see if there is a relationship between your forearm and your height. You know, can you use one to predict the other? Because, you know, if your arm length is supposed to be the same, I would think then there should be some relationship between parts of the arm as well. So that's what we're looking at in this discussion. And so we're going to be using data in order to look at what this relationship is and then see if an equation you come up with can be used to predict somebody else's height or their arm length. So in order to do this, we have to do some measurements. And so that's the first part, is measuring. So you can use a ruler because most of these are not more than a foot. I don't think any of them are more than 12 inches. So you can use a ruler to measure. You're going to measure your forearm distance from the elbow to the wrist in inches. So you can see in the diagram, that's the part that you're measuring. So I'm going to quickly stop sharing because I'm on camera. So I've got a ruler here, so I'm going to kind of demonstrate. I'm wearing long sleeves. So basically, I'm just taking my ruler, making sure I have the inches, and I'm basically going to measure from the inside of my elbow to about where my wrist ends. So I'm going to say my wrist ends about here, and then I'm going to look at where that is in inches, and that is about 8.5 inches. So my forearm is 8.5 inches long. So that's what you're going to be doing, is you're going to be measuring your forearm. But we need 2 points of data in order to make a line. To draw a line, you need 2 points and then you connect them. So you're going to have to do that with a second person as well, is find their forearm length. And you can choose somebody that is in your family, or a friend. It could be somebody you can just look at what a classmate has done is use their numbers. They don't have to be adults. I've seen people do it with their children to see if there's a relationship. So you just have to get a second person, and you're going to have to measure that same forearm distance. And then from there, you're also going to measure your height, and you want to have your height in inches. So my forearm was 8.5 inches. My height is 64 inches because I'm 5'4". So you're going to get two numbers for each person. And that's the measuring part. And it's kind of fun to like have somebody else involved in your math. So the second part is doing the math. And I've kind of walked through here the actual steps. And this will make more sense once you learn about what we're talking about this week. But for the discussion, your first step is to write two ordered pairs with the measurements. So your first number is going to be the forearm. So for me, that would be 8.5. The second number is going to be your height. And then you write those 8.5 comma 64, and then it's in parentheses. So that's an ordered pair. And you're going to do that for each set of measurements. So you'll have two of these. And then you find the slope between your 2 points. So that slope formula is in 3.3. So you'll find out how to do that in 3.3. That was a terrible 3 there. Absolutely terrible 3. Once you find your slope, and then you're going to plug that in to this formula. So if you want to learn more about the formula, that's in 3.5, but I'm giving you the formula. You have numbers to plug in, and then you're solving for y. And you'll learn how to solve for y in like 3.2, whoops, 3.2 and 3.4. There will be examples of sort of how to do that. So you'll see some examples of how you do that when you have an x and a y and what that means. And then your last step is to graph this. And so it says graph the equation and your ordered pairs using Desmos.com. So I'm going to actually bring up Desmos. We have not really talked about Desmos because we have not done any graphing before. So this is Desmos. It is a wonderful graphing tool. This will be really handy when you go into college algebra. So you just click on Start Graphing, and then you have this graph. And so you're going to be entering in ordered pairs. And so you're going to enter it exactly as you read it. So I said that one of my ordered pairs is 8.5, comma, I'm 64 inches high. So you just type that, and then you can add a label and put a name to it. Now I'm not going to see anything right now. So in order, I have to zoom out, and then there's my point. So I zoomed out a little bit too much. And then you'd have your second person, and I'm going to just make somebody up. Let's say I just made up points. And so then you would enter in their points, and then you would enter in your equation. Now, I am making up this equation. So this equation is not going to be correct in any way. If your equation is correct, it will go through your 2 points. So you can see that my equation is not even close to being correct. And when you solve, this will be how you can kind of check. So I'm going to kind of make it up and see if I can get it closer. Nope. No, still not even close. A little closer. So you know you've done all of your work correctly if it goes through those 2 points. So if you graph and your points are not on your line, that means that you messed up your equation. So this is a good way to check yourself, and that's why we're graphing this. I made up this equation, so I know that it's not correct, but I wanted to kind of show you how you would enter into Desmos and then how you enter those ordered pairs. Now you want to include this picture in your discussion. So there's this button over here that has like a box with an arrow. So you click that, and then you can share. So you can share the link, or you can click embed and copy the HTML if you want to get really fancy with your discussion, or you can export the image and then you can download it and then import it into your discussion. So that's what you're going to need to do for your discussion. And I'm currently not logged into Blackboard, otherwise I would show you. I took a screenshot of it. So Blackboard actually has a way that you can type up math. So in your discussion editor, let's zoom in here. So you see this thing when you're in the discussion, you see this toolbar, and if you don't see all these options, you hit the little arrows here and then you'll see more options. This button that says FX, that's what you click in order to get math that you can type into your discussion. So you're required to show your work for this discussion. So you're going to insert the math by using that button. Once you hit that button, a window will pop up looking like this. And then you can type all of your math here, push enter, and that's how you can show your steps. And if you want parentheses, there's a shortcut for parentheses here. I don't think if you want to do fractions for your slope, you would click here. So that's how you're going to show your work for the discussion. So that's what you have to do. So my expectations is that you are going to show your work. So you want to show all of your steps, and then you want to explain what you're doing in math and in words. When you're showing your work, your goal is to write it as if you're teaching somebody else how to do it. And so you want to explain what you're doing, saying, I'm finding the slope, here's the formula, and then show, I plugged in these values. So that's how you explain and show work, is try to do it like you're teaching somebody else, or write down what your thoughts are, what you're thinking as you go through the math. Put your graph at the very end. And then when you're replying to your classmates, take a look at their math. Does it look like they did their math correctly? Do you think their equation is going to be accurate to predict for you? And you can even check by plugging in your numbers. Plug in your forearm length and see if it gets your height right. So that's a good way to check to see, is this a good equation? Can we use this for prediction? And if you see any errors or you have suggestions for improvement, you can go ahead and do that in your replies as well. The goal of this discussion is, once you go through all of this work, is do we have similar equations? If there is a relationship and we can use your forearm to predict your height, then all of our equations should be similar. If they're not similar, why might that be? Would that be user error with measuring, or is it because we can't use one to predict the other? So that's what we're sort of exploring in this discussion. Do you guys have any questions on the discussion and sort of what the requirements are? Okay, I don't see any questions. So moving on, your ungraded practice assignment is going to be problems from Chapter 3. It's from the Chapter 3 test. You only need to go through 1 through 23 to kind of get practice on the problems that you're doing this week. Your week 7 assignment, you guys should know how the assignments go these weeks, so that should be nothing new. Your quiz this week. So this quiz is a little longer. It's got 20 questions, but a lot of them are fast. That's why there may be more questions, but that's because some of them just are really quick questions. So 4 of them are short answer. There's definitely a short answer on, let's see, there's definitely one on writing ordered pairs on a graph. So there's some short answer. And it's going to be on the topics from this week. So you're going to be asked about reading graphs, understanding ordered pairs, determining if an ordered pair is a solution to an equation, completing tables for linear equations, graphing linear equations, finding x and y intercepts, finding and understanding slope, and then slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. So those are the types of questions you're going to be asked. I do have a video already in my instructor videos where I talk about determining if it's a solution, ordered pairs, completing tables, finding slopes. So some of this I already have a video on, and then I'm going to be making another video on 3.1, which is the rectangular coordinate system. So that video, that live session, I believe is going to be, Friday at 1 p.m. So Friday at 1 p.m. I'll be going over 3.1. Which will give you the basics of the rectangular coordinate system and how you graph things and what all the vocabulary means. And that should help you moving forward for the rest of the material. And then lastly, the suggested schedule. So there's only 4 sections. And I actually recommend that you maybe start immediately, but of course you can modify this as needed. But if you do follow this schedule, that leaves you 3 days that you can use to catch up on any missing work or do any resubmissions. So that does leave you some time to get work in, especially because if you follow my schedule, then you have nothing to do Monday and Tuesday. So those are great days for catching up. And then I've got some additional practice problems. These are different from the ones that are suggested from the Chapter 1 test. These are from the review problems. And so these are some extra practice problems that might be helpful. All right, do you guys have any questions for me? All right, well, I don't see any questions. So thank you guys for joining and getting an idea of what you need to do for the week. If you're having trouble in the discussion, feel free to email me and I can help you out if you're struggling with that. And hopefully I'll see you guys Friday at 1 for the live session. So, all right. So I hope you guys have a great night. And of course, let me know if you have questions. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.